Welcome back, Sega fans, to the podcast that, if nothing else, it's out there. I'm Dan the Mega Driver. As always, I'm joined by my friend and co-host, the Kong to my king. It's James the Segaholic. How you doing, mate? Pretty bold, are we?
I'll take care of you myself. Sure, I love you too. I'm very good, mate. Very good. How's yourself?
Very good, mate. And anyone that's watching this will know that today we are joined by a special guest, swooping in like a surprise Joe Fang boss battle. We welcome Jason Maddison back to the show. Jason, how you doing, mate? Great to have you back.
I'm doing great. Thanks, Dan. Just recording. I'm about to have a week off work to play a certain game releasing tomorrow. It's not a Sega game, but yeah, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And no doubt doing some housework and DIY work. But yeah, I'm feeling a bit jovial tonight and looking forward to talking about the subject matter.
So I was going to ask you, very just to warm us up. What you're playing modern game wise? What you're currently playing? It's like preferably Sega, but yeah, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is looking pretty good, to be honest. I just finished playing through the original a few weeks ago, I think, at the time of recording, which I loved, even though it's the same criticisms I have of it it's the translation's janky and it's tonally it's all over the place. It did make me laugh because when you're playing it not switching discs on the Switch version, you kind of areas dies, then you move on, and 20 minutes later you're snowboarding. It's like, oh well, jeez.
I think you need to put like a spoiler thing over Dan's mouth when this goes out.
Oh come on! If
still some young children out there that have been painted by.
That's up there with the boy in my work that stood up and took offence that somebody said David Palmer dies in 24, like 20 years after it had aired. Like I was talking to somebody about like shock deaths in 24, and I went, David Palmer got me, man. I didn't expect that. And this guy just stands up 2 deaths. So he goes, spoiler alert, mate. Welcome to 2021. Like, come on.
What do you mean Darth Vader's Luke's father?
I mean, it's been 10 years now. We still don't know exactly what's happened to Jack Bauer after he was taken away in that helicopter at the end of, was it Live Another Day? That was the last series with him in, wasn't it?
Mate, he's advertising trading apps. It's trading with a plus.
Oh, modern games, right? Because I don't have a lot of time to play games all the time because I'm doing my full-time job in graphic design on a gaming magazine. But I saw a tweet of yours, Dan, before Christmas, I believe it was, and you'd bought Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core for your Xbox.
Yes.
And I've never actually been through that properly, even when I had the PSP version. And I got halfway through the Switch version when that released, but I got distracted by something else. So I thought, right, because Dan's playing this, I'm going to play on the PS5 version. It took me a few weeks to complete that. And then I thought, right, I've got 3 weeks until FF7 Rebirth comes out. How can I get through FF7 Remake again? Because I needed to refresh myself. But thing is, I didn't want to go through the original game again because I've played it probably 20 odd times since 1998. And I've still not completed Remake, so I'm probably not going to start Rebirth tomorrow. So that's my modern gaming. And then a lot of last year was taken up with Final Fantasy 16. So I'm a bit Final Fantasy if I'm.
Play something Sega, mate. The best RPG I have played in the last decade has been Like a Dragon, Yakuza 7, and I'm loving Infinite Wealth at the moment. I'm playing Persona 3 Reload on the PC as well via Game Pass. Absolutely. Have you played the Persona games before?
I haven't. They're originally a sub-series of
Shin Megami.
Spin-off. Yeah.
So Shin Megami Tensei.
So I sold my Switch recently, but Christmas 2021 I bought Shin Megami Tensei 5, which was the first one I've played of that series, and I absolutely adored it. That was like well over 100 hours that I put into that that was like 4 or 5 months of my life. I wish I could start Like a Dragon, but there's like what over 10 games, and I just wouldn't
Yeah.
have the time. But I've been through Judgment, and I need to go through Lost Judgment, and I guess I've got time to play those two. They're kind of separate to Like a Dragon,
Yeah.
despite being set in the same fictional world. But in terms of Sega, you'll be pleased to know I did start Grandia around Christmas, and I've never played that on the PS1. I did play the Switch version. I got halfway through that, but then I thought, you know what, I'm going to go through the original version with the English translation. But in terms of retro Sega stuff, I guess, or Sega stuff in general, I jailbroke my PS3 at Christmas. A bit naughty, some people might think, but my first line of thought was, right, I've been playing the Saturn a lot over the past year and a half at this point. I'm going to look for all of the Sega games that came out on the PS2 in Japan and try those out, and try and get a lot of the Japanese Sega games that released on the PS3. And one that I have been playing a lot on the PS3 during my lunch breaks is Outrun Arcade, which
Oh yeah.
I think it's like a remix version of Coast to Coast.
So it's effectively Outrun 2 SP. So
Yeah,
that's the arcade update, which gave you 15 new courses. So there was, I think it's kind of an up version. Is it 2DX? Something like that. So SPDX, it may be. But yeah, it's just basically Outrun 2 SP. So there's
uh,
original Outrun that was came to Chihiro board and then came to
yeah,
Xbox. Then there was Outrun 2 SP,
yeah,
which changed the courses for like 15 new courses, but some improvements to the game and the scoring system. And then there's Outrun 2 SPDX, which is kind of the HD version. I think it's a version of that online arcade is based on. Obviously, Coast to Coast is like a combination of both and has throws all this additional content in. But God, it's an absolutely beautiful game.
it is.
Absolutely adore that game.
Yeah, definitely. I just keep going back to it. This is the thing with Sega arcade games. They play so well, you could just keep coming back to them and trying to beat your own times, and they're just a lot of fun. And I've really enjoyed myself. I never really put any time into Outrun 2 when I got it for the Xbox back in the day. And I played it on the actual arcade machine before as well in Nottingham. But yeah, I've been having a lot of fun with this. And then I downloaded a Japanese version of an Initial D game that came out on the PS3 only in Japan. It's got an English translation, so I'm trying to play some of that. But there's a lot of good Sega stuff.
Speaking a lot of James's language there of Initial D and Outrun 2. You need to join us down in Arcade Club, don't you, and dominate the Outrun 2 arcade machine.
Oh, mate, honestly. That's it. Just
Yeah,
like
do that one
get
day.
get 4As on there. Just commandeer it for the full day, man. Just that was so good, honestly. That just epitomizes Sega. That game, it really does. Just like whenever you get to that finish line, you just need to go again. Like the amount of times that Dan and I just looked at each other and went, one more. It wasn't one more, it was about eight more. It's like it was just such a good game. Everything about it is just nailed on. The handling, the look, the feel, the music, just everything about it. I mean, Initial D as well was a brilliant game. It was great to play that for the first time in ages. They had the new one, remember?
Yeah.
And it was like you won the race that asked you to pick an upgrade. It's all in Japanese, so nobody's got a clue what the hell's going on. You picked what I think was like an engine or a transmission upgrade, and it went game over. That's me to pick an upgrade, man. You've just kicked me off. But the original one was there. And again, that was a game that whenever I played it, like I literally went to CA Games, letting got a PS2 Slim just to chip it. I didn't want to chip my big boy, my launch console. I was like, just get a Slim because the Slim was apparently easier to chip. And
Mm.
like, I went, Charlie, I'll have a PS2 Slim, put the chip in it, and give me that copy of Initial D off of that shelf because I need to play that. It's such a good game, man. Honestly, can you beat Sega racing games? That's just that the absolute best of the best.
Yeah, man.
You've been involved. You tried the touring car challenge that Shiro hosted at all, Jason?
Oh man,
Oh, The thing is, James was he didn't tell me about it initially because when these things come up on the internet, I get my head into them. I end up just wasting, well, it depends on what you call a waste of time, just spending hours upon hours just repeating the same process and trying to addictively be at the top. But I did have a go on it last week, and I just got the normal Mark II controller out and trying to do it with the D-pad to prove that it can be played quite well with D-pad. And when you get, I was doing the arcade side championship mode. I know he's got like all different challenges and whatever, and I was just struggling with the corners on the third stage. And I don't know why. I think the frame rate of the game was giving me a bit of an headache. I was playing the Japanese version, but
Yeah,
I
I don't worry
might.
about the corners on the first stage. I just just lever it into the
There's
wall,
actually
ricochet off.
there's actually someone, Dave said that, there's someone who's near the top of the leaderboard who's playing with the Mark One Western controller, the circle D-pad, like, no, up, down, left, right, are just dots. And somebody's actually like up at the top of the leaderboard faster than I'm getting with a 3D controller. But I've not been able to get back on since I put those times in, just been too busy and various kind of family things happening. But
Yeah.
It's been good. It's like to see the turnout for it. You know, we've seen that there's an appetite for these things, like obviously with the Sharka challenges as well. So we've seen there is an appetite for these kind of things. But whenever you've got somebody on the scale of Shiro who are zeroing in on the actual Saturn community, and we've been told what the next game is, which I don't want to say in case this goes out before they announce it, but um, that's another underrated, overlooked gem of a game, which I think people will again get into, learn the mechanics of it and start having a lot of fun with it, because it was one of mine and Sam's favourites back in the day as well.
Mm.
So yeah, that Saturn community, Jason, I think that's a nice segue in. You know, as Dave and his crew try to grow the Saturn community with challenges like that, and James and I doing our best to shout the name from the rooftops on our side. So the reason why we're having this discussion today is just to talk about you discovering Saturn. You know,
Yeah.
so just recapping on your favorite Sega when you went through your kind of gaming history, and it was kind of the Saturn that was you'd had a Mega Drive and you'd had
Yeah.
a PlayStation and you jumped into the Dreamcast and you absolutely
Yeah.
fell in love with that.
Mm.
But the Saturn at the time was something that completely passed you by entirely, wasn't it?
It definitely was. I mean, I've always wanted a Saturn. When I was a kid, like around my area in Lincoln where I grew up, none of my mates, no one that I knew had a Sega Saturn. I've, never been on one until the beginning of 2022 when my close mate Josh bought one at a gaming market. But yeah, no one had the Saturn. We all had PlayStation ones. Some of us got N64s. I got one Christmas '98, didn't have it for too long. And then there were a lot of us that, we all played Final Fantasy VII back then. We all played Tekken, Metal Gear Solid, and we all loved Resident Evil. As I said, people used to come out to my house to watch me play Resident Evil 2. And obviously, Code Veronica was something I was aware of. I got introduced to the Dreamcast, like I said, bought the system for that game. A lot of other people I knew then bought the Dreamcast based on me and my mate harking on about it at school and Resident Evil Code Veronica. But the thing I remember is my mum used to take me around all the different shops like after school and at weekends. And I used to always look at all the different cases on the shelves, but I well, she remembers more than me. She remembers me looking at the Saturn cases a lot, and she said to me not long ago that I kept looking at a game called Virtua Fighter 2, and I kept asking her for it. But at the time, this was before I got the PS1, I kept begging her to buy me a Sega Saturn and a PS1. But the Sega Saturn, she said to me the Sega Saturn was too expensive, and she just bought me the Mega Drive, so I got that Christmas '96, if I remember. And because I kept saying I wanted Virtua Fighter 2, she saw Virtua Fighter 2 for the Mega Drive, for £20 in electronics boutique, or I think, was it Game Zone? Was it called Game Zone? I know they had a name before they became Electronics Boutique, but she bought me that,
Remember?
and then it wasn't what I thought it was.
Yeah.
No.
I quickly traded it in for Rise of the Robots, if I remember correctly,
Oh,
which
Jesus
decent.
Christ.
Jason, man, I don't know if you get any. Like, you've already got a downgrade from VF2 getting the Mega Drive version, and you just shit the bed and like downgraded it again, man. That's like,
Well,
oh, Rise of the
but
Robots. Jesus.
we had a
Oh,
second-hand game shop around my area, Monks Road, where I grew up, and it was called Phoenix Games. And if anyone from Lincoln's listening to this, the Phoenix never rose again. You'll know what I mean. Uh, but yeah, when I used to go to Phoenix Games, the shop owner Dave, I mean, cut a long story short, he got shut down because the police raided him as someone grassed him up for chipping PS1s and selling copied games around the back, as it was back then.
The
But
bar, isn't it?
he was always there when I used to go in there to trade my games and whatever. He was always playing Tomb Raider on the Sega Saturn or Super Bomberman on the SNES. And I remember him saying to me that Tomb Raider was his favorite game and he loved the Saturn. So I always like my mum did. She got me a PS1 for night Christmas '97, and but I always had this thing at the back of my mind that I did want a Saturn because I'm always open to playing any console really. And then as the years went on, I just, I never got around to getting it. But it was when in early 2022, I went round to my mate's house, Josh, and he had a Sega Saturn in a bin bag, and we set it up, and then the game he had with it was Sega Rally, and I knew you guys, big Sega Rally fans, and he said, "Oh yeah, just sit down and play on this." And he said to me, "Do you want your Chinese? Do you want to go to the Chinese, get some food?" He went, "No, I want to keep playing this." And I couldn't stop playing it, and I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna have to get a Saturn at some point this year and do something about this. And I knew I was talking to James a bit about it, and then I ended up taking the punt finally. 'Cause it just felt like a forbidden fruit that faded me for years, and I don't know why. As I bought a Japanese Sega Saturn off eBay in decent nick with a decent white case. And then it had a few games with it. And I guess, from there I started modding it, put it into a clear case, got the PSU replacement for it, and then I got a Fenrir, and wow, what can I what can I say, man? It's after putting the Fenrir in it, I was like, where do I start? Like, this game's got a really exotic Japanese library because I love Japanese games.
it's quite funny that going through that story, and I think we've all had it to a degree, even when when we talk to you listen to people like Dave from Shiro, and you listen to Sega Lord X, and even myself and James, we talk about our stories, and it is like it almost is like a forbidden fruit to a degree, for Sega Lord X, he was importing the console from Japan, he was in that had that pre-release hype. For me, I was saving for over a year.
Yeah,
For you, James, obviously it was in your uncle, so you only got to
Mm-hmm.
sample it when you saw your uncle, and it's the
Yeah.
words that you used. It was kind of forbidden and mysterious, and it's funny that that still persisted with you until you got your own one in 2021. It's just a console that exudes that mystique, isn't it?
this is the thing. It's 'cause even before Josh bought his, it was still something, I was checking out videos every now and again on YouTube, and it's just like, there's that mystique about it, and I always felt like, God, I really want one of these. And when I got it, I felt like I'm in the presence of something great. And it's an old console, it's with dated graphics, but how do I put this? Like, I've said this about the Dreamcast before. Like, I was there in the moment when it was commercially viable, and I know that me buying the Saturn, I'm never going to have the sort of relationship with it or the memories with it that someone who had it back in the day in its commercial lifespan would have. And it felt like, how do I put this? In the sense, I'm going back to the past to go back into the past to experience the future. So
Mhm.
as I say to people that play Shenmue for the first time, try and cast your mind back to it being the year 2000. I'm casting my mind back to it being 1994, 95. And that, I'm just like Sega Rally, I thought when I first played it, God, these graphics look great. For a console of this age, it just looks brilliant. And, I'm taking it all in. And then when I got the Fenrir installed, I'm just like, where do I start with this? All these different games, it's really exotic, it's different, it's got an edge to it compared to like the PlayStation or whatever. And I don't know if I've got those feelings because it's something for years I've been kind of in the back of my mind anticipating, experiencing and buying. And I just wish I did have the chance to have one back in the day, but that's never going to happen. So, it's getting it in the modern era, I guess, and just going from there. And then obviously I've got access to this library of games through different sites or whatever, and it's an incredible system, which we're obviously going to get into a bit deeper. But like when it came to looking at the games to play on it, I started like going on YouTube looking at top 10 lists, and then I discovered Sega Lord X.
Mhm.
And then I just started taking down notes, right, he's recommending this game. And I started going through all different genres and that, um,
What was
fighting
the first
games.
game that really drew you in?
Oh,
So obviously there's, you got you saw Sega Rally, that was your first impression, and you got
yeah,
your experience of, you had your pack, the games that you came bundled with it from your purchase from of the Japanese console, and then you
yeah.
put Funrear in there, and all of a sudden you've got, unlimited games. Um, but
It,
what was
it,
the first, we were having sort of a similar conversation recently,
yeah,
about how when you've got an abundance of stuff to choose from, you go
yeah.
through and you go, all right, I'll give that one 5 minutes. I'll play that for 10 minutes. What's else? What else? And you're like a kid. You're like
Mm.
Dudley Dursley and Harry Potter with 36 presents, and you don't know what you're going to do, which one you're going to open with and play first. So there must have been one that hooked you for the longest time, and that was one. What game was that?
So I don't, right. I'm going to be honest here. It's not what people are going to expect me to say, but Bulk Slash.
Okay.
The reason why is because I bought a PC Engine Mini
Yeah.
back in when COVID was happening and that released. And I started playing a load of shooters on it. And, a lot of them had this like, CD, like guitar music on it. And I knew about this game from looking at Sega Lord X's videos. And then I loaded it up. It had this anime intro, and I'm a big anime fan, as people know. And I was watching that intro, and you've got that, rousing guitar music in the background. Then you've got the title screen with that the Hulk Hogan style Hulkamania font, and that big rousing guitar riff going off. And then I just felt this energy with it. And then I started playing the game, and it's not the usual game I'd kind of play. This is the amazing thing I'll get onto with the Saturn, but I just loved it. The graphics look great, the gameplay's fun, and I just it was one that I kept wanting to come back to, and I just felt, I felt it just felt really new and fresh to me, and like really exciting experience. So yeah, Bulk Slash, the English fan translation as well.
And the work that's been done on that is absolutely amazing. Like you would not think that was a community mod. The actual standard of the voice acting, everything about it is just absolutely incredible. And again, it's the same team that did Stellar Assault SS, another amazing translation as well. You played that one, Jason? You tried that one yet?
I haven't. I'll have to add it to a long list.
Ah, aye.
The As you say, that it's like Dan said that when if you're a new time buyer for the Saturn, you've got a Fenrir. It's like a candy store. It's like a Pandora's box and Aladdin's cave of games. And there's so many of them. Like the library for the Saturn's huge. And what attracts me to it a lot is the fact that a lot of that library is Japanese games. I just love playing discovering like my next favorite game. The next quirky little
You
nugget of fun or whatever. And I it's yeah, it's just
You surprised me
incredible.
there, Jason, because I thought the answer you were going to say, because I remember when you got one, and I remember I think you were posting updates, and Police Noughts was one of the ones that I remember you first playing through. I think you played through the whole of the English translated version. Obviously, brilliant game, Hideo Kojima joint, which I would have thought that one would appeal. So that was an early
See,
one you played, wasn't it?
it was, yeah. You see, that's not a typical game that I'd play. Because I bought the soundtrack for Snatch on a tape cassette from Limited Run Games. But even though I've never played the game before, I like, I enjoyed. I've discovered it, and I enjoyed listening to the soundtrack. And I thought, you know what, I like Metal Gear Solid. I'll give Police Notes a go. And I played through it for like a couple of weeks. But then when I was thinking about, what game really impressed me, I just wanted to think of something in terms of graphics as well. And Bulk
Yeah.
Slash, it
It's the top
I
package,
can't
isn't it?
imagine it comes in the top 10 of a lot of Saturn players' lists, but it was just one of those games where, the art style was really striking. It just really stood out to me. I think Sega Lord X kind of sold that on me as well. But then there's so many other games that I could talk about, when it comes to the Saturn that I've played through. Um, there's a lot of, that I tried for 5 minutes or so, but then there's been others that I've played constantly. And I can honestly say, I think I'll still be discovering new games for it for many, many years to come. That's the beauty of it, really.
I mean, you're talking a lot there about the Japanese library,
Yeah.
and funnily enough, an episode that we recorded recently um, with Shiro was that, is the Western library, is it underrated? It's like, so people think about the Western library and they automatically go to the big three, to Panzer Dragoon, the kind of the go-to titles. But I mean, in terms of that Western library, do you find yourself dabbling in that much, or is it the Japanese side that kind of lures you in that bit more?
For me personally, I've always played Japanese games because that's what I grew up with more than Western games. If I could think of popular Western games, I think of like Tomb Raider, Last of Us, Gears of War, Halo. But when it comes to the Western library on the Saturn, I recognise that a lot of them are games that I've actually played before, back when I was a kid, and they're probably games that I wouldn't necessarily want to revisit with the amount of time I have to play games. But interestingly enough, when it came to looking at trying out all the different Saturn games, I went through kind of categories of gaming styles, but also one of the first things I actually did do was go through some of the games that I had on the PS1 as a kid, because I wanted to see what the differences were in graphics. And the thing, I, c- I don't know if I'm going to have the right terminology here when I say this, but the thing with the Saturn's graphics is something I really like about the texture mapping. On I know the quads rather than tri-polys that the PS1
Yeah.
had, but it's just something really striking about and clean about the Saturn's graphics. Even compared to the N64. So some of the games I went through, I had to go on Tomb Raider, Destruction Derby, Wipeout 2097 because Sharka, who we've mentioned before, did one of her racing
Mhm.
challenges on Twitter for that. So that was a game. I can't really remember the PS1 version that well, but it played like what I remember, and it looked amazing. And I've really enjoyed that version, or the Japanese version anyway, XL. Um, then I went through Battle Arena to Shinden. I tried out Dead or Alive, which looks massively different to the PS1 version and plays great. And then I started playing, Grandia was obviously a game that I played on the Switch first, but then played the original Saturn version. And going into some of the more well-known Japanese games, I tried Panzer Dragoon for the first time, but that was after going through the Switch remake or the modern remake, as it
Yeah.
were, because it's on other consoles as well. So it's kind of like I'm revisiting with the Saturn. I'm revisiting some older games, but obviously with a modern mindset and under a different lens. And from what I've seen in other videos and through text material and books, what I've read in books, some Saturn versions run worse than the PS1 versions. But at the end of the day, they play great to me. But there is a lot more that I could explore in the Western library, but I am more inclined to try out the different Japanese games. I mean, I then went on to playing 2D fighting games, and I've never been a big fan of 2D fighting games, but obviously there's a lot of Capcom stuff on here. And the thing I realized was I'm actually quite good on these games on the Saturn. And it's because the Mark II controller is probably one of the best controllers I've ever used in my life. The D-pad, there's something about it that just makes games. I can play games better with the D-pad on the Mark II controller. So I started playing. Is it Darksiders? What was it? Darksiders for
Darkstalkers.
Yeah, yeah.
Vampire. Is it Vampire Savior that you're playing?
Yeah.
Vampire. So that's the one. Yeah. So I was playing that a lot. Don't know why I forgot the name there. Then I was playing a bit of Street Fighter Alpha 3 when my mate came round. He loved it. He felt like he could do more compared to the PS1 version and the Dreamcast versions that he's used to. You know,
It's a
then I
much more
started.
robust port. There's a lot more modes and options, especially on like the dramatic battle side. You've got loads more. It's more comprehensive. The PlayStation version is solid for the hardware. The Saturn version is outstanding. Dreamcast one has shorter load times than the Saturn, but
Hmm.
it's got some really weird changes in the Dreamcast one. It hasn't got as much content, and then it's got some weird stuff like it's just changing stuff for the sake of it. But yeah, the Saturn port of that is absolutely amazing, mate. So, did you play
Yeah.
much dramatic battle with your mate? Was it against each other, or did you team up?
Oh, we always play against each other, but the thing with Josh is he's a bit of a button masher. We normally play Tekken 5. It's a tradition with us. We play Tekken 5 all the time on his old PS2, but he's really good on fighting games. He always beats me, but it's just fun, spending time with him.
Mm.
And he's not really delved much into the Saturn since he bought one. Well, he hasn't really, but when he came around here, it's just really cool going through some of all the Saturn fighting games. There was a beat 'em up. I don't know why I've forgotten the name of it, but it's like Streets of Rage. It's got a Japanese name. Hopefully you can help me out here. But we played through all of that. What's it? Is it
Is
called
it?
Neketsu? Are you?
Oh, aye. The guy's got like kind of jeans and a red jacket on. It's like kind of 2D side scroller.
Yeah, yeah.
Aye.
Yeah, we went through that in one sitting. We went through Die Hard Arcade together as well, which that's a brilliant game, absolutely brilliant. Again, I tried out Die Hard Trilogy, which I had on the PS1 back in the day, and that was interesting seeing the differences in graphics. And then I started going through 3D fighting games, and some of these I've never played before, like Zero Divide and a game called Surd, which was from the same
Heard.
development company that made Code Veronica.
Aye.
And Battle Arena Toshinden URA.
Yeah.
Um, then one of my favorite 2D fighting games as well, which I discovered on the Switch. I can't play on the Fenrir for whatever reason; it keeps crashing. Is Waku Waku 7. That would be one of my favorite Saturn games if I could play it.
I,
Um,
I've
yeah,
got a
I've got
build of
it.
that. I've got a build of that works on Fenrir. I'll send you.
Cheers, mate. Because we've still got the same firmware update, I believe. Because I've not updated mine
I
since
don't know
I
if there was a
bought it.
patched version or something
Aye,
specifically for it, but the load times are a bit long on it, but it works. It works fine.
Bonkers.
you know,
Absolutely.
and then after that, I started going through racing games, and I then realised there's a lot of drift races here on the site. Drift King 97 was one that I was playing at, and then a lot of them are quite terrible. I'm going to be honest; they're not great, you know. But there are some that I've had quite a bit of fun on. But there's so many games there. I got halfway through Deep Fear last year, then I got distracted. So yeah, I mean, hopefully one day I can get around to doing the Panzer Dragoon series and complete Grandia. But yeah, that's the thing when you like back in the day, if my mum had got me one, I'd obviously be buying Discgate, normal copies of games. But obviously, when you're coming into it in 2022 with a Fenrir and access to any game that you want, it's just what do you sit down and commit your time to? But yeah, it's been a journey with the Saturn, to say the least.
Passenger Green's only an hour, isn't it? Isn't it, James? An hour, 10
Yeah, you
minutes.
can blitz
Well,
through it. Yeah, absolutely.
could blitz through that and then the second one, but then it's putting time into the third one,
That is
Saga.
literally
7, 8 hours.
20 hours.
That's if you're, does that include exploration? But I mean, you can pretty much fly through the first couple of discs pretty rapid.
The
Yeah,
thing with the thing with me is I'm one of those people that if I play an RPG, I'll do side quests. I will
Hmm.
explore every nook and cranny that I can. And that's the thing that's like FF7 Rebirth I'm reading takes about 140 hours. That's probably 6 months of my gaming time that I
oh, I'm straight B. Like Panzer Dragoon Saga. Last time I did it, I tried to do 100% of the map, and I did try 100% everything and get like the top combat rating on every enemy,
yeah.
and it was still barely over 20 hours. It's quite a short RPG, but yeah, I just make a beeline for the main quest on those games, mate. Otherwise, I'd be here forever. But I've had to sideline Elden Ring for the second time, 120 hours into that because I started like a dragon 8.
Yeah.
Then I've started playing. I don't know why started playing Persona 3 Reload at the same time, and that's going to be another 60 hours. I don't know why I do it to myself, but I just make a beeline for the main quest. But yeah, I've definitely give the first two a go, mate. And Deep Fear, if you're on the second disc of Deep Fear.
Don't know. I looked on YouTube quickly to see how far I was into the game, but I'm pretty close. But again, I might have to start it again because I've played a lot since then. I've probably forgotten some of the bits that I did. The voice
It's
acting's great in it. I
I
was.
was gonna say it's legendary, isn't it? Mookie, you could have scared me then.
I mean,
Come on, get serious.
the thing was as well. I did go through the whole of Resident Evil 1, and that was one of the games that I was biding my time to go through on the side because I'm a big Resident Evil fan. I've played most of the games since childhood, and the thing was, I started the Saturn version around my birthday on Halloween last year. I had a week off work. I just thought, I'm gonna do this game. I'm gonna go through it, and it's just really interesting because I actually, weirdly enough, I prefer the Saturn version to the old PS1 version. Uh, and I think it might be something to do with could be the graphics. The character model is obviously different, but there's just this, I don't know, it's just something about them. It looks great, it plays great. And then it just makes you think, what if the second game had reached the Saturn? What could have been?
Mhm.
You know, I've read books about the development of Resident Evil games. One of the recent books I read, they mentioned that they didn't think it would be marketed well in terms of market, be viable, but they also said that because of the increased transitions of the pre-rendered backgrounds that were in the PS1 version of Resident Evil 2, it was increased from the first game. But then obviously I read that the cancellation of Resident Evil 2 on the Saturn was, an apology for that was Code Veronica being made for the Dreamcast. But yeah, there's a lot of, I do wonder, what could have, a lot of the games that came out on the Saturn that were big on PS1, and didn't have sequels on the Saturn, what could it have been like if the sequels that did come out on the PS1 did come out on the Saturn? So it is interesting looking at these games, and just having these theories. Yeah, hmm.
I think it's a freaking
the,
topic, isn't it? What could have
the
been?
the differences, though, I mean, the Saturn version, as you said, Jason, you've got those different looking 3D models, but the Saturn version's got those much richer, detailed, 2D backgrounds. You've got like the Golden Tyrant, Zombie Wesker. You've got the battle mode, which is only on the
Yeah,
Saturn version as well.
yeah.
So there's so much wealth of content. And again, this was all just stuff that I put together whenever I was doing the PlayStation Icon video that went out a while back.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see just how much extra went into the Saturn version, even though the original, idea of it coming out on Saturn, like they didn't want to, apparently Capcom didn't want to do it at first. But I'm glad they did, because as it's the character models have got this, they're just different. You don't quite notice the kind of the hinges, if you want to use that word, the kind of the where the elbows and the knees and the lower legs and things like that all kind of meet. But it's definitely got a cracking, a different art style to it than the PlayStation original. But it's definitely worth playing, as I says in the video.
I was talking to John Linneman about it once on X, and I think he said they're chunkier.
Aye.
He didn't say, he fell short about saying whether he preferred one or the other, but he did say that he did like the Saturn art style on it. Which, it's, and I think that's the thing about the Saturn, the way that it renders polygons. Obviously they're quads, but not only that, the textures are essentially they're all distorted sprites rather than traditional. And that's the weird thing, isn't it, about all three? You've got the Saturn that had quads and essentially that were essentially two distorted sprites, and then you got the PlayStation which had triangles. Neither of them had a Z buffer. So both of them were writing directly to the frame, which is completely contradictory to how modern 3D games are rendered. And then you got the N64 that was different again. So it's just and you've played all three, haven't you, Jason? You played the other two back in the day, and now it feels like they've three different sides of the same thing that you kind of have to experience all of them, don't you?
I mean, I even played, I even had Resident Evil 2 on the N64 when I did have the N64, so I've played all the different versions. I had Resident Evil 2 and 3 on the Dreamcast, the PC, GameCube, but since playing Resident Evil 1 on the Saturn, for the first time, well, I did try it out when I did get the Saturn, and I had a level height HDMI adapter, which made the game look a bit dark, but when I got the Rad2X, everything was brighter again. But yeah, since going through Resident Evil on the Saturn, I genuinely think that Resident Evil 2 and 3 could have worked well on the Saturn, but that's something we're probably never going to know. I just feel like with the Saturn, there's this untapped potential. That if it had been, if it sold more, if it was, if it had lasted longer back then, as well as the PS1 did, who knows? But this is the great thing that I'm finding with the Saturn is there's a lot of people in the gaming community that are doing all these fan translations, they're doing mods. I tried out the recent Castlevania Symphony of the Night patch. Uh, I guess what I'm trying to say is it's probably a bright future ahead for the Saturn when you think about the community.
I was going to say, we'll never see what Resident Evil was like on Resident Evil 2 would be like on the Saturn. I was going to say, don't put it past this homebrew community, mate. We've seen them all. Metal Gear playable, Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy 7.
The homebrew scene's absolutely insane. And as we've said, you think back to like 2 years ago, like what was it like? It was okay, but there was kind of basic stuff being done, or people starting to just kind of dig in and see what they could do. But
yeah,
you see the stuff that's being done now, like even like the stuff for the Sega Extreme homebrew competition that's running just now. Like there's some stuff on there. Like, it sounds daft, right? Like that Cube Cat game, right? Now, my daughter loved it whenever I was playing it because also I'm doing one of the kind of judges for the competition, so I'm playing them all. And she sees me playing with this wee white box kitten jumping about, and she's like, "Oh, Daddy, I need to play that. Can I play that?" So I just let her play it, and she loved it. But other things like slide hop as well, which again sounds daft. You've got a pony with wings, and you can jump and then jump again. Then you press the right trigger to activate the wings, and that can take you to higher levels. The left bumper or trigger, what you want to call it, left bumper shoulder button, that lets you kind of slide. And there's like parts in the stage where you've got to collect like hexagon shapes, but some of them are way up high, some of them are across ledges. And the idea is you've got to basically build up enough speed through a combination of jumping, gliding, and hopping and sliding to build up your pace. And as you go faster through the stages, like there's checkpoints, so you can choose to race through them rather than just go about and collect the hexagon-shaped tokens. And there's this noise as you're playing it, and it sounds like a toboggan going along the ground. It's like, but as you go faster and faster, that ramps up and it almost gets addictive that you want to hear that getting faster. So like, come on, let's go, pony, go. It's like you end up building up ridiculous pace. But what's impressive about it is the draw distance is absolutely incredible, both polygonal and in terms of sky and scenery using VDP2. But just to kind of look the different kind of colours and levels of detail on the slopes and the stages, absolutely brilliant. And just some insane stuff getting done. Some of the other stuff as well was like Saturn Wordle was one of the entrants, which made me laugh, although it doesn't work on real hardware yet. It has to be emulated. But yeah, nowhere is safe from Wordle, mate. That's it. But there is the homebrew scene, I think, is becoming as important, if not, dare I say, more important than retail releases. Like we've all seen what developers got the Saturn to do, and it's great that people are digging in and are, experiencing games from the Western library, from the Japanese library. But the excitement for me, I don't know about you guys, comes from like, was it XL2 did the Unreal demo as well?
Yeah.
And whether he's going to come back and finish that off or give those tools out for other people to use them, I don't know. But the excitement for me is for what we're going to see. It's the 30th anniversary we're heading towards, Japanese wise. Like, what are we going to see in this time next year in the competition? Like stuff like Cold Case, man. Hopefully the results have been out, because I voted Cold Case as my number one game for that. I just like Jay Barretta, what a job he's done with that. The vibe on that, the Silent Hill feelings, mixing in kind of elements from the medium, the kind of dual worlds, like the music that plays that guitar on a title screen. It's just catches you, man. It's just such a good vibe. I really hope he finishes that, because that is such a brilliant game. Like that's a few bits of kind of polish away from, in my opinion, mirroring a retail game. Just so the homebrew scene, I don't know about you guys feeling on that, but for me, I think that's becoming more important than the retail stuff. We've all seen that. Let's see what new people can do with more tools and more access to the hardware.
Definitely, man. I've been following I've been following some of the stuff, but like, I've not played much of my Dreamcast in the past 2 years. I've lived a lifetime on the Dreamcast, I guess, but when it comes to the homebrew scene on the Dreamcast, there's nothing really there that excites me. A lot of it, in my opinion, it just feels like a lot of NES style 8-bit games. Whereas on the Saturn, there's people that are actually really trying to delve into what the Saturn can do and make some really impressive 3D games. And it just feels like the Saturn's scene. It just feels a bit more exciting at the moment in terms of that. So I'm eagerly awaiting what's going to come out in the coming years and months. It's really exciting, and it'd be great to see it on the Dreamcast. I'd like to see more people do 3D content on the Dreamcast, perhaps a port of Scud Race, but we'll just have to see. But it is, the community for the Saturn, it's astounding. If it, and I'm hoping that in the coming years as well, I'm sure you guys are hoping this as well, there'll be more people that will discover the Saturn and will be buying them off eBay and, enjoying them for many years to come. Definitely.
The other aspect as well to look at is the amazing work that's been done to get Saturn back online. So there's scripts have been written, USB dongle modems that you attach to your PC. You use this script. It's like a one-click dial-up, and you go through NetLink. And obviously, NetLink in Japan was X-Band, wasn't it? Was it X-Band games they had in Japan? There's a variant. Yeah. So there's the NetLink games have been patched to work on X-Band, and the X-Band games have been patched to work on NetLink. So like titles that might only be Japanese only online. Like Dave's already shown it on the Shiro channel, where like he's playing West Coast to East Coast against somebody playing Sega Rally. And I remember him asking the guy he's playing with, are you experiencing any lag? And he goes, well, I am, but the reason for that is I'm viewing it on my monitor, which I'm using to capture. I don't have a pass through. Whereas if he had a pass through on his capture card, it would have probably been completely faultless. Um, so that's something that I'm looking forward to trying in the near future, because I think that in itself could open up another whole kind of subset. Like we've seen the success of the Shiro Community Challenge, what Sharka does, as we've mentioned before. You imagine if you could actually get enough people with these net links running these scripts going online. Like, I think the Shiro guys, they took over the old domain for the old Sega Touring Car Championship website and have actually started uploading the names and the times. Like, my name's on that table on like this resurrected Sega Touring Car Championship website. It's like, this is amazing. Like, it's just so good. So that the online aspects, well, I know Dreamcast is back online and has been for a while, but it almost kind of feels as if that's quite complicated to get up and running, like Dream Pie and whatnot. But this whole Saturn things, like these little USB dongles, this script, and then you just click to connect and off you go. And it must be absolutely insane in 2024 to watch a Saturn dial up and connect to another Saturn. I just like that must be absolutely mad. Like just to see that connecting, like, and then boom, there you go.
It's like, I think it's a testament to what Sega were always trying to do with their consoles when, they did have the Saturn and the Dreamcast. Like they're always working on different peripherals and all these online, options and stuff. Whereas I don't know if the PS1 ever had anything that went online or any feature that could go online. I know the Pocket Station and other peripherals were, allowed you to expand what you could do on that system. And then the PS2, the online for that was rolled out from Japan very slowly. But Sega really did try and pioneer a lot. They took a lot of risks, a lot of risks. Didn't always pay off, but it's just incredible, like you say, that people are now going online with the Saturn in 2024, and who knows what, and that's probably going to get bigger from now on. It's just incredible. There's loads of stuff you can do with the system, and yeah, I'm really excited for the future of Saturn.
It's interesting because there's so much going on, but then there is an awful lot to catch up on. I haven't played everything in the back catalogue, so I mean the homebrew scene is astonishing how exciting it is. But it's an odd one, isn't it? Because you're looking at it with completely different eyes in a way, because stuff like a stall, for example, we barely knew that it existed because it never got a release over here.
Mm.
Grandier was kind of a pipe dream. We couldn't play that in English. I mean, there was a bunch of games that were, came out over here, but you're not restricted. You're not bound by having to play them on a Power Saturn, and you're not bound by having to, actually has to pick up the physical games. I think that's probably where the homebrew scene is thriving a lot, is because the cost of collecting for the Sega Saturn is one of the worst things about it at the moment.
Yeah.
But there's just so much out there, and there's so many different ways to come to it. And I think that's probably one of the things about it, is that whatever it is that you want, it's probably there. It's out there because if you want to play like the Western Library, then it's there, and there are Japanese games in the Western Library. The Shining Force 3, obviously it's just part one, but that came. Panzer Dragoon Saga, Deep Fear, Shining the Holy Ark, Dark Saber, and all this wonderful stuff. And obviously Sega's arcade games. And then you've got the Japanese library as well. And then you've got the homebrew, the translation, and there's just so many ways. And as we were just talking about like the online just now. But
Yeah.
did you get, just to bring it back round? Okay, so thinking about what your story at the very beginning, did you ever get round to playing Virtua Fighter 2, and what was your thoughts on that? So that's
Funny enough, right? The first Virtua Fighter I genuinely played was Virtua Fighter 4 on the PS2. I don't. I had number 3 on the Dreamcast. I just never unsealed it, and I still do not know why to this day. But Virtua Fighter, Virtua Fighter 2, I first played that when Josh got his Saturn. So obviously he had Sega Rally first, and he bought is it called Magic Carpet? It was one of his favorite games on the PC back in the day.
By
And
Bullfrog.
he bought me a copy of Virtua Fighter 2 for a fiver from the gaming market, just to play on when I went round to his, because I normally visit him every 2 weeks. So he lives in Nottingham, I live in Lincoln. It's just like an hour's drive. And we had a go on it. He hated it. I said, "What? Why do you hate this?" He said, "Well, it reminds me of Dead or Alive, but I can't do a load of moves like I can on Tekken." I went, "Yeah, but this is like, I don't know. It just feels more tight and precision based. I feel like that the fights are flowing better, they're faster. I'm not having to do loads of different button combinations. There's a lot. Really enjoy it, and it looks fantastic. It's probably one of the best looking games I've played so far on the Saturn. Definitely.
Yeah.
But I was going to say this, like when it comes to he's talking about online communities, stuff like that. I just want to give some like massive thanks to Sharka, because when I got the Saturn, as you know, she was doing these racing tournaments
Mhm.
on Twitter. And the first one I entered was for Sega Rally, and it got me playing the game constantly and constantly. And when it comes to competition, I am competitive, sometimes to a fault, because I want to be the best. And that I'm up against people like yourselves who are like been playing this game since you were teenagers, and I was learning all the intricacies of the game, but I was sticking with like the D-pad. And when you're playing Sega Rally with the D-pad, I don't know what it is, but the game is really well designed that you feel like you're one with the car as you're moving it with the D-pad. It's got this kind of phantom resistance when you're twitching the steering on it. I can't describe, but it's just brilliant. And it this beauty. I've always liked it about Sega arcade games. You could just keep coming back and coming back for more because they're so fun and playable, and they're just based on very simple gaming principles and mechanics. And then she ran another tournament, competition for Manx TT, and that had was a learning curve. But I got a knack with it. I think I came second in the competition for that. But that's a get. Sega Rally was my game of the year in 2022. And I remember putting that out there on Twitter, and I felt very proud of that because it's just a fantastic game. And then Manx TT, I really enjoyed that. I put hours into that. So, and I felt like Sharka was kind of helped me, mate, really enjoy my new Saturn, and get a lot of time out of it. And I've got those placements on those leaderboards, which I've saved the screenshots of, and they're memories that I class them on some of my favorite gaming memories. So yeah, the Saturn is giving me some of the best gaming memories I've ever had, some of the most fun I've ever had in gaming. And
That's amazing. Like, so many years after not only it launched, but after,
yeah,
it essentially died an early death in the West, and that it's still able to conjure up that magic. And yeah, the stuff that Shaka does is amazing, and you can really tell the passion that Shaka has for gaming, and especially for that era. I think she started a kind of a PlayStation kind of fan site now, hasn't she?
yeah,
Which looks really cool. And then the
I've
scan lines look is great as well.
I've said to her for so long, like you should start like she's very focused on like retro PS1, and I've DM'd her as well. Says, look, you've got a real opportunity because no one's doing this yet. I think because PlayStation is still current, it's still got new consoles, new games that people really aren't interested in going back the way. And like Jason, you're working on like RPM with Sandeep.
yeah.
I just think there's a real opportunity for someone to just find that little niche in that retro PS1/PS2 bracket. Is it wobbly
Wobbly
polygons?
Pixels.
wobbly
Is it wobbly? No,
pixels.
wobbly polygons.
But I'd says whenever she put the tweet out asking for people to retweet it, and I says, yeah, just get a wee kind of promotional tweet, and I just put P.S. That sounds like an excellent podcast name. And she replied saying, yeah, we stay tuned, we might be working on that. So I hope she does, because there's definitely a market for it. I don't think there's anybody, especially UK wise anyway, that's covering like retro PS1. Like all we have with Sega, other than modern day games, all we've got is the past. That's why we kind of go back to it so much with those kind of memories. But I think there's definitely a market there for a similar thing on PS1. And what she's done with the racing challenges, not just they did the Outrun 2 Coast to Coast one a while back as well. And I even found that playing that, like I hadn't given much thought to the score mechanics. And Outrun 2's got a ridiculous, like Coast to Coast has got a ridiculous, addictive like score mechanic. Like if you pass well slipstreaming, you get X amount of points. If you pass clean, you get X amount of points. A bus is worth more than a car. A van's worth more than a car. But like if you get past your rival, like in enough time, there's a window that you've got when you get within X amount of distance of them. If you get past them quick enough, you get 50,000 points. If you touch them, you get like 10,000. If you take too long, you get 25,000. And it's like you start. I'm doing it, Sean Connery. You start to string those together, and you start targeting cars and vehicles on the road, to get past them, to slipstream. So, I would never have even got that deep into Outrun, Coast to Coast, if it hadn't been for that Sharka competition as well. So, but again, it just comes back to that brilliant Sega race mechanic. Like Manx TT is often criticised for it's only got 2 tracks, and obviously there's mirrored versions of them. And yeah, probably back then, 50 quid for a game with that little content would have probably grated a bit. But like again, with Manx TT, if you just get in the zone with that, you just racing away, passing the checkpoint. It's just addictive stuff.
Same with Daytona. That was another one that I entered. For Daytona, another great game that I never got to play back in the day, and I've really enjoyed playing that. But and then I played the PS3 version afterwards that I downloaded. This is the thing, I feel like I'm still at the beginning of a Saturn journey, and I bought the 3D pad recently, so that's opened up even more possibilities for me to enjoy the game. So hopefully I can go through nights and Burning Rangers, at some point with the analog stick. I might try Manx TT with it, or Sega Rally,
a touring car.
Touring. For some reason that game was giving me a headache. I don't know if I don't know if other people experience that, or it's because the frame rate's a bit herky jerky compared to.
It's not stable. It's all over the place. You're playing the Japanese version. You try playing the PAL one, it literally turns into a slideshow at some point, which is a shame because the magic is there. I've never been one to kind of stick it out. I used to have a few games of it now and again, and be like, mainly for the music and for the
the soundtrack's great.
But then I started playing it for the Shiro competition, and I was raging a little bit. But then when I got a time, I was just like, I know I can beat that. And then that hunger clicked in then. And obviously you're talking about Sharka challenges, and you both know what it's like. You just have to keep going and show. Well, obviously, James, you're in it as well, and you're sending me messages going new personal best, and then someone's got some unreal time. You're like, oh, for goodness sake.
Aye, no, I mean, talking about people WhatsApping personal best, Jason, you and that MSR. See, you were I'm when I allow myself a swear word, right? He's laughing. You were a dick when it came to that, right? Because you know what I'm talking about. I was literally, I managed to finally get a time. Might have been first or second. Right? And Jason's famous last words on a Sharka challenge are, "Oh, that's me done," right? Which is always Jason talk for. you're going to your bed, but I'm sitting up for the next 2 hours to beat you. And lo and behold, I wake up in the morning to a WhatsApp message, and Jason, and no, he's even got the cheek to put, "Sorry, mate." That's what he put.
I saw it.
I'm like,
I saw it. I see it all the time.
I'm like,
You'd be like, "This is my final lap time now," and that's it. And then like 2 minutes later, there'll be another one up, and then another one.
You know, I've still got. I think I've got a scar in my thumb because I was playing it that much that I actually got a blister on my left thumb in the Dreamcast analog stick, and it's actually I've got a little scar, and so yeah, you know that war
Warman's.
and you know once I got to number 1, that was it. I was done and I was happy because I think at the start of that there was some lass on there who was playing it on emulation, and I think she was at the top of the leaderboard, and I was getting quite pissed off with it. And I even messaged Shark to say, "What's the deal here with this, you know, emulation stuff?" Because I thought at the time that people were just playing on real hardware or something. But then, you know, I eventually beat her, and then I think I started getting really in the zone with it, and then kept messaging James, oh, I've got
Was
to beat
that
this. I'm
was
giving up.
that
I'm done."
was that the last thing that said that I'm sure she was the one that was top and she replied, "This game's pretty good, but my God, all the songs are about sex."
Well, she also said the handling was rubbish on the game as
Yeah, I
well.
remember. I
I think
remember.
I took
Remember
quite
one.
some offence to that for some
Uh,
reason. But that was a fun challenge. But that was the one I really got into because
I know.
it's just the cornering on that track. You know, if you cornered in a certain way, you could shave this amount of milliseconds off your time. And I don't think I'll be able to play MSR again after all of that. It's
Blisters on your thumb. Do you know that leads me into another question. Actually, it was just like, so have you got your 3D Saturn controller now?
Yeah, I've got it here. Yeah,
What
in my drawer.
what do you think of that compared to the Dreamcast one? Because the Dreamcast pad gets a lot of stick, and I think some of it's deserved, some of it not so much. But I don't know why they changed the pad so much from the Saturn 3D one. The I think the Saturn pad got a bit of ridicule when it came out. I remember my circle of friends used to call it the Smarty pad because it was a big circle. But playing it now, it just feels so comfortable, and the stick, the way that the stick is, it's obviously concave rather than convex.
Yeah.
I don't know
I,
if you think it's more comfortable than the Dreamcast pad from what you've used.
you see, this is the thing though. I didn't really think about this controller much, you know, I looked it up again on eBay or when I was getting the Saturn. But you can obviously tell it was like a prototype for what the Dreamcast controller became. They definitely should have stuck with the 6 buttons. You know, definitely. The analog stick, because I've not really used it that much, admittedly yet. But the analog stick, it does feel weird to me, but I'm sure I'll get used to it. But there's something, it feels like it's got a lot of travel and you know, it's really big, and obviously
It's
it feels
massive, isn't it?
it's massive. It feels tactile. Um, but it certainly feels a lot better than the N64 analog stick. I will give it that. But it does feel comfortable to hold. But I think they maybe should have stuck with that design, you know, for when it came to the Dreamcast. But at the end of the day, we'll never know now. But at least it's something I can look forward to, hopefully enjoying, and that you know, and maybe maybe if I'd used it or had it when I was doing the Sega Rally and Manx TT competitions, maybe I would have done better. Who knows? But I did well enough that I'm pleased. So
See, that's the thing with the 3D controller or the analog stick or the 3D controller. It's got this little, obviously, as you say, it's like concave, so you've got a kind of wee circle kind of grips on it, but there's also a very slight raised edge around it.
Yeah.
And see that raised edge. See if you just, well, I find this anyway. See if you just rest the pad of your thumb on it. That wee ridge, that's the part that lets you hold the bike at an angle or just hold a line in a corner. Like, don't sit your thumb right on the circle, flat on it, because that gives you too much travel. Just rest the pad of your thumb on that little ridge, and you can actually feel the millimeters of movement, and you can just hold a line. It's like it's just it's an incredible controller. I just always wonder what Sega had planned though, because obviously they had that multi-port, that multi-connector. What was the plan? What else was going to happen with that? Because,
Yeah.
like, again, it's just like people, you unplug it and you look at it and you go, it looks like always. In fact, know what that reminds me of? It always reminds me of the connector that Doc needs to connect at the clock tower. I can't unsee it. See it back to the feet, Dan's away. It's like pulling it across to try and connect it. That's what it looks like.
Looping the Saturn pad around the light up there and traveling down and.
But it does. See, just that big chunky plastic bit with the connector in the middle. It just reminds me of that for some reason. I don't know why. It always has. But I always wonder what kind of other plans they had for it. But it's a wonderful controller. It's also going up in price as well. Like you see them on eBay going for about 50 plus quid for the PAL one as well. So that's just going to keep going up as well, like everything else. But it's worth it. It's a controller that's definitely worth it. Like you're talking about, like getting into nights, Jason. Again, you can pick up nights and you'll do your wee loop the loops and this is nice and fun. And then you'll start to realise that whenever you've, broken Nidia capture and you go back to the palace, no, you don't go back to the palace. You go over the palace and you keep doing laps to rank up your score. And the whole aim is to get A's the whole way. You know what I mean? It's just like, again, people wanted to look at Knights as being like the rival to Mario 64. It's not a platformer. At its heart, it's a Sega arcade game. It's a score attack game. And see, once it gets its hooks in, it's so addictive. So you've got that to look forward to. That'll be your next one. You'll be sending me screenshots of Knights. Look, mate, I got all A's. A paralooped Gilwing in one go.
Well, it's a good job I've not got into touring, Carl. I'm not going to put the time into it because I think I'll be WhatsApping you a lot of that third track just put me off. But I know I was playing with the D-pad on that, but it just put me off because hitting all those corners, I was like, God, I'm really bad at this. But then I had a massive headache after it. But
the thing with touring car, the Japanese version is more playable. The PAL version, as Dan said, is a slideshow, but it's the frame rate in the Japanese version does help a wee bit, that 60 hertz, because the PAL version is fully PAL optimized, so they've sped it up to match the speed of the NTSC version. But in doing that, it's just made the frame drops even worse. So it's like, but see, if you go for playing touring car, like I had this, it was really bad. Like I was playing touring car over and over again, and see, whenever you've adjusted to the frame rate on the Japanese version, and like touring car, the whole point is grip driving. You've got to find your line and just try and stick to it.
Yeah.
But like, honestly, it's just the frame rate, if you're just getting used to it and you're in the zone, you're flying through the corners and you're on that for like 15, 20 minutes, see if you come off that and go on to Sega Rally.
Yeah.
If it feels like pure pedestrian, it's like, yeah, I'm going to the shops to buy some, it's like, you feel like you're driving your granny's car. It's just so slow. Like, honestly, but that's the thing with touring car. It moves at such a pace. And that's almost kind of what's caused the detriment, because to keep up that level of pace, also the frame rate kind of gave. But I think people have been, the kind of chat on the Shido Discord, there's people who are in that kind of modern community have made noises about maybe getting back in and try to look at it and see what they can. So someone said if you run it in wireframe mode, it runs fine, which you would expect because you just removed all the textures and all the polygons, just like wireframe version.
But that's a nice feature of Wipeout 2097 as well, the wireframe. This thing that we talk about speed, that I got an NTSC Japanese Saturn because I remember because I was thinking about back in the day when I got my PS1 chipped, and I got like NTSC versions of games that I already had in PAL, the difference on some of the games was night and day because the games ran 17.4, being a bit pedantic there, but 17% faster than their PAL counterparts. And I got used to that, and obviously when I got the Dreamcast, I obviously play the games in 60 hertz.
Mm.
When I got the PAL PS2, I was back to playing games with big black borders again. And then I got a US PS2, and then the games were a lot faster. So I've not actually played any PAL versions of any Saturn games yet because I'm just I felt like I'm never going to go back to playing PAL games again because
Mm.
I always feel like they're lesser versions than an NTSC version. But again, I understand that some games on the Saturn have been optimized for PAL, so I don't know yet what the differences are, but
Yeah.
as
Various. I
well as
mean, there's a few PAL exclusives. The Saturn library is very weird.
mm,
Not just from the fact that, it's got such a variety of such esoteric games on there, but it's also because for example, you got games that are exclusive to Europe, a lot of footy games, which, if you don't have the nostalgia for them, if you don't have the nostalgia for playing Saturn games at 50 hertz, then you could probably avoid them a little bit. And then most of the good football games are in Japan anyway, like Sega Worldwide Soccer 97 is something like Sega Worldwide Soccer International Edition or something in Japan. But then you've got stuff that is PAL exclusive that you don't get in the US. Like again, Wipeout is one. But then you've also got stuff like Shining Wisdom, where the translations are completely different. And you've got it's like the US version is inferior
mm,
or is regarded as inferior by working designs to the in-house Sega Europe one. So it's a very and that's just an example. There are a few examples
Mm.
where working designs did the US version, Sega Europe did the PAL version, and because you get all sorts of mods like there's mods out there that remove the working designs translation for a lot of games. So it's interesting. I mean, there's
it
certain games it's worth looking at there for at the Power Library for.
it's interesting you talk about that as well because if I remember back in the day, and I'm talking about the PS1 here, there were a lot of Japanese games that were easier than the Western versions because they made the Western versions purposefully harder so that they could make more money in the rental market and get, I think I remember quite a few of the Resident Evil games, the Western versions being harder than the Japanese versions for that very reason, so that people will keep coming back to them again and again.
Yeah, so Sega, I think, are the infamous people behind that idea, that nefarious idea. It's the reason why Streets of Rage 3 is pretty jank compared to the Japanese bare knuckle 3. They and even stuff like a style, the American one, you get free hits or free lives, don't you, James? Something like that, and you
Yeah.
get five in the Japanese one, and
So Bug
obviously
as well.
Bug as well. Yeah, if you play Bug, the US version and the PAL version delete your save file after three attempts. So like if you try to continue from your save file three times, third time it just deletes it. So you have to start all the way from the beginning. So what you want is and James loves this, you want Bug jump shite from Japan.
The best name ever, honestly. So I'm sorry, I'll never get tired of that. I thought it was a piss take when Dan told me that was the name of the Japanese version. I
I'm
was like,
sure,
it was
yeah.
called what?
I'm sure the pronunciation isn't like that, but I just saw the name. I was like, ah.
Well, it's spelt shite,
Yeah.
but it's not shite. It's very good. I like Bug.
Yeah.
I mean that G4 Icons video whenever Bernie Stoller talks about the Saturn. The problem with the Saturns just didn't have any good games, and Bug comes on screen. I get quite offended at that. Bug's fun. Bug's got good character. It's not like
Tough
it.
though. That's a
But
tough
aye,
game.
spit attacks and zap attacks, and that's good fun. I enjoy it.
You had a chance to play that one yet, Jason?
Bug, no. No, no, not
Clock,
yet.
Clockwork Knight.
I've played Clockwork Knight. I had to go on that one. That reminded me of like some of the Traveller Tales games on the Mega Drive. Well, I think they only made two, made not two, Toy Story. It
Yeah.
reminded me of Toy Story on the Mega Drive and the SNES and the Effects Man, but I think that's because of the graphics.
Well,
But
well, Game Hunter, I think, said that Toy Story was kind of inspired by Clockwork Knight because Clockwork Knight came out late
right,
1994.
ah,
And when he talks about the effects that they did at Traveller's Tales on the Mega Drive version, so they got the line scrolling and make everything look like on the Mega Drive that they were like polygonal models. So when
mm.
you're walking past the boxes and stuff, you get that scaling effect where they're moving across. It looks like they're actually 3D. And I think he says on there that they're trying to emulate Clockwork Knight. I mean, Sega again, they had Toy Story before there was Toy Story, but it just didn't capitalize on it.
No. Oh, a lot of charm to Clockwork Knight as well.
Yeah.
A lot of charm. Definitely worth playing.
Trying to think what else I played. There's a 2D fighting game I like playing. It's a girl. It's a the only characters you could play are girls. It's called Advanced VG. That's one that I really like going. Virtua Cop I've played on that. House of the Dead, although I don't have a gun. Um, what else? There's too many games that I can think of that I've tried.
See that's a point as well that we were talking about in a previous show, and it's a real issue as well. Is like digital hoarding.
Yeah.
Because like again, back in the day, you were like getting a game, you would ask for a game for your birthday, a game for your Christmas, so you had time to, and you didn't want to rush through a game,
Yeah,
so you embraced it because it was 50 quid, it was a gift, and you took your time with it. But I think like now, because of the whole kind of digital thing, you get an SD card, you go on certain websites, everything's there, the whole library, all regions, and you just go, I'll download everything. It's like just give us the lot. And there is that temptation where you can get quite kind of overwhelmed. Now, for us, it's a godsend for the channel because we can jump between like
definitely.
different footage for games. But I think like the best way to approach it, I find, is just to kind of try and pick two or three games, and just if you're going to cycle through those two or three. Because again, I started Vandal Hearts and I get right into that, and then I fell away from it. And again, I've just went back to my old faithful, the usuals: Sega Rally, VF2, Virtua Cop, Panzer Dragoon, the usual, the safe options, Last Bronx, Virtual On. But I really should go back to Vandal Hearts because A, the translation work is brilliant, and B, it's a bloody good game. Like, take someone's
Definitely, Matt.
head, spray of blood goes up. It's just brilliant. So much charm to that game as well. Love the kind of the battle mechanics of it, as moving little chess pieces around the board, getting within range. Just such a good game. And
That
they go back
sounds
to that.
like is it Tactics Ogre? Because I know that
Yeah,
before Square Enix became Square Enix, Enix, who are well known for Star Ocean games, they actually made a few games for the Saturn, I believe.
Yeah, they did.
I think there's a platformer that looks really weird, but it's not been translated yet. I can't remember the name of it, but if that was translated, I would like to play it. I'd actually like to play Snatcher if someone would translate that for the Saturn.
I don't know why
Is that
people haven't yet.
Yeah, I've got the Mega CD version. I've got a reproduction of it. I can't. I've got like the reproduction for a tenner. It plays on the Mega CD. It's a good quality one. It's got a manual and everything. It says on there where it's from, so you know it's not
mm,
a reproduction. So it's does the job. And I played through that, and it's an amazing game. I'd love to have the Sega. People still say that the Mega CD version is still the best version because there's a lot of
Mhm.
changes in the 32-bit versions, but still, if you'd think that they'd be able to translate that for the Saturn. There's the English version exists. The voice clips are out there. Someone can source them from the Mega CD version. The funny thing is the Mega CD version is the only one that's got a English translation. All the other ones were native
yeah,
to Japan.
that's the thing
Maybe
that
just lift it. Maybe just lift it and just drop it on. If it lined up, it'd be just because it's a game I want to play, but like
Oh,
it's just
it's Kojima magic, mate. It's absolute
wow.
magic. It's it's obviously it's more of a point and click sort of
Aye,
game than it's not Metal Gear
yeah.
Solid, but you take a point and click and you put Hideo Kojima on it, and I don't know. I think I just love everything that man does.
See, you know what? I wanted to mention about Kashu because James mentioned digital hoarding, and the thing is, like, I think with my current lifestyle and my work commitments, because I work full time, and then I also do graphic design on the side, and it's like I only have a limited time to play games, and I have to plan what I'm going to play, and with the Saturn, like going forward, I am actually going to start whittling that, deleting games off the SD card that I know I've tried them at least. I know I'm not going to play this game, put time into it, and then just kind of narrow everything down to games that I know that I want to play in the coming years, but then still keep trying out different, adding some more games to try them out as well. And obviously, translations as they come along, if they're in, or homebrew stuff, if there's anything I want to play. But I actively do that on my PS5 as well. Like, I've got loads of I've only got a digital PS5, you see, so I've got loads of digital PS4, PS5 games from over the years, but I've started deleting games that I know I'm never going to play again. And when it comes to Metal Gear Solid, like I've played them that many times. I've been through Metal Gear Solid 4 2 times, which was enough for me. And I've kind of I don't know if it's a bit morbid to say that. I feel like I'm nearly at the halfway point of my life, and it's like I don't have the time or the energy to go through Metal Gear Solid again. I've resolved like to never play them again. Like, I've been there, I've done that, but there's still a lot of other games I do want to revisit. So I'm constantly trying to scope out what I'm going to play. It's like when I hacked the PS3, I put a load of PS1 and PS2 games on there, but I haven't put actually that much on there, but just enough that I know that these are games I probably want to come to in the future. And the same with the Dreamcast as well. I poured years into playing stuff on the Dreamcast. Like I've gone through Shenmue 1 and 2 so many times. And I will revisit them at some point and eventually do three because I wasn't too keen on that one, to be honest. Um, it's just digital hoarding. It's same with physical. I used to have so many physical games, but because of something going on in my life, I had to sell a lot of stuff. Like at one point, I had 200 Switch games, and I know I'm never going to play all these games, so I just started whittling everything down. And I've just got, enough stuff at the moment that I know I'm happy with and that I'm gonna, want to play in the future. It's just, digital hoarding.
Yeah,
You find yourself deciding there's just so much out there that you just want to keep adding and adding, but then it kind of feels overwhelming as well because it's like, okay, what should I play? What should I commit my time to? And I normally have one modern game on the go at a time, and I'm normally playing one retro game. And like many times on the Saturn in the past 2 years, it's been stuff that Shark has done. So I've got a modern game on the go at night time, and on my lunch times, I've got like a Sega Rally thing that I'm doing or whatever. But yeah, it's got a huge library, and I think for a lot of people that are getting it for the system for the first time, it's daunting, but it's also a blessing as well because it's a huge Aladdin's cave that you can explore.
yeah. I totally relate on the digital hoarding as well. Like when I was installing Persona 3 Reload, I had Elden Ring installed, and I had uh Infinite Wealth on there, and I needed loads of room, and I installed Crisis Core on there as well, thinking I need to play that as well. I've just bought Persona 5 and Soul Hackers, which I started and never got through. I'm terrible, mate. I'm I started Soul Hackers on Game Pass, but it was near the end of like when it was on there. I was like, well, I'll just buy that and I'll finish that later. So I normally like you, I have a modern and a retro one that I want to go, and then a handheld one as well that I might
Yeah,
play like while I'm going to bed. But now I've got about five on the boil for modern gaming. But what I was going to say is like in terms of hoarding, I always have all the Gears of War and Halo games on my Xbox Series X,
yeah,
and I just had to sit there and think, when am I going to play these again? I played them to death. Halo especially. Me and my son went through every single Gears of War game in co-op. then we did Halo, and we did those in Legendary. And I thought,
Yeah.
aside from Infinite, what like the multiplayer I play on that quite a lot. But when am I going to play these again?
But it's nostalgia, isn't it? I like, for example, I've got an external hard drive from a PS5, and I've still got all of the Resident Evil and Final Fantasy games that I enjoyed still installed because they mean a lot to me. And I know there's a lot of people out there where Halo and Gears means a lot to them. So
It does to me as well. I can just download them whenever. They're not going off Game Pass any soon. And plus, I've got the
No.
discs for them and everything, so it's just like they don't need to be installed on there. They're just cluttering up my hard drive, and
yeah,
it's just like
yeah,
I don't need them on because I'm not going to start them anytime soon. I've got a list as long as my arm to get through, and I suppose it's the same with the Saturn. Like what you're saying, it's daunting, and I suppose that's kind of the challenge of it as well. Is like, wow, there's so much there, but then how do you properly curate that into something that you can step through, that you can savor and enjoy the games that you really want to get into. And I suppose there's a bit of trial and error there, a bit of discovery. And as you
definitely.
said, mate, you're a couple of years in, but you're still at the beginning of your journey.
It feels like there's still a lot of the well-known games that I've not even delved into yet. I kind of just I paid attention to what Sega Lord X put in some of his videos, like his top 10 lists, top 10 fighting games, top 10 racing games, and blah blah blah. But I normally just go for stuff that I want to play, that that just has a magnetic effect for me, rather than just going for the well-known games, the status quo. And I kind of feel like Bulk Slash is one of those games that wouldn't necessarily be everyone's cup of tea, or the first game you'd think of if you thought of the Sega Saturn. So I tried to delve in some of the niche stuff early on and kind of discover what, could become my favorite game, my next favorite game.
Yeah,
But that,
brilliant, mate. So just to tie it all up then,
yeah,
obviously we talked about, your favorite games, how you've discovered it, how you've really gelled with it, and we touched on a lot of bases here. But what would you say to anyone that hasn't tried the Sega Saturn yet?
this is the thing I find, right? So I have friends come out here once a month to watch it. We always have a wrestling night, and I go visit different friends when I can. And I have tried to sell the Saturn, sell the idea of them getting a Saturn because they're all PlayStation or they're all Xbox fans, but Dreamcast fans even. But a lot of them, they just feel quite hesitant about the Saturn. But I've kind of said to them, look, just cast your mind back to it being the mid-90s, and just have a go on it. Try Sega Rally, try Daytona, and just sit down and just play it for 10 minutes and you'll love it. And that's what I've tried to say to them. But it doesn't always work. I mean, with Josh, I thought, because he loves Capcom fighting games, I genuinely thought that he would take to the Saturn, but he hasn't. And, I can only go on about it so much. I hope that answers your question anyway.
No, it
But
doesn't. I
I
think
think
that's all we can ask in it, James, is
just
people just to try it.
just sit down and just try it. That's all you can ask really. And I'm
Aye.
sure there's something I'm sure anyone that sits down with it for 10 minutes or half an hour will enjoy it. I can't see any reason why anyone would dislike the Sega Saturn, in my opinion.
Aye. That's the one takeaway that we've all got. It's very easy to come to an old console for the first time. And I would imagine it is quite difficult, you know, to ignore, is it prejudices the right word? But kind of the influence of decades of technology that's come since, and things like that can be quite hard to overlook. But just try, as Jason said, cast your mind back. Just think about what you're seeing and when people were first seeing that, what impact it was having, what the machine was doing in some cases for the first time. Like with Tomb Raider, no one had seen anything like Tomb Raider before. It was on the Saturn first. Virtua Fighter 2 running in a
Yeah.
higher resolution than the Model 2 arcade board. Okay, concessions made in terms of 2D backgrounds and some assets being removed, like Shun's Bridge, but high resolution mode, 60 FPS, texture map graphics, just try and take it for what it was when it came out, not for what it is now in comparison to what's come since.
Definitely, but you know, like some of my mates, I think my mate Dan, I said to him, look, you know, try out the Saturn, just come upstairs because he was at my house. So come upstairs, come and have a go on Sega Rally. You'll love it. You love racing games. You always say you can beat me on any racing game. Come and have a go on it. And he's just like, oh no, I don't know about Sega Saturn. I don't know anything about it. You know, no one had one when I was a kid. I heard it was an absolute disaster, and you know, no one wanted it. No, I'll just stick to the PS1. I went because I know I know a lot of people out there like, they're not open to trying something that's alien to them, and I think that's a reflection on the people I grew up with because they all had PlayStation or a lot of them had an N64, and it feels like they were kind of conditioned to that, like you know, because the PlayStation was the status quo for many of us back then, and the Saturn was just this expensive thing that was sitting in Woolworths and no one was buying it probably. You know, it's so I always try and keep an open mind about things. And I'm glad I did with the Sega. I'm glad I did with the Sega Saturn, but I think it was because I was secretly pining for or subconsciously pining for one for decades.
It's bizarre, isn't it? I think there is a lot of people where they're just like, oh, I don't want to even try a Saturn. Don't want to play it. I never got into that when I was a kid. Where it's just a bloody games console. It's like Sega Saturn. Dave likes to say the Saturn doesn't know it's a failure. It's just a dumb block of hardware that plays discs, plays games. But yeah, it's odd that people have that kind of fear, like it's trying like new food or something. It's just a game system, but I think it's people like you, Jason, and that sharing that enjoying it for the first time because there's the old Sega Saturn fans and there's people that are still discovering it, and it's that range of experiences and that range of different kind of views and tastes and all that fine stuff that just makes the Saturn community what it is. And there's just so much there and so many different, whether you go into the old stuff, the Western or the Japanese library or the
Yeah,
modern, like the homebrew stuff. There's so much out there, but no, it's spot on, mate. It's what we want really is just for people just to try it and to try it. I think is to love it.
definitely,
Awesome.
Absolutely.
definitely. There's a lot of people that have got into the Dreamcast since that commercially died, and you know, I think the Saturn deserves the same kind of attention. I think yeah, that's the only way I could tell this off, really. Yeah.
Yeah, mate. Thank you so much for coming on. So obviously,
Thank you.
Jason Maddison, the creator of our logo, the admin of our Discord chat. This is your chance to plug away. I know you've got a few things that you're working on at the moment, and just let us know what you're working on and where people can find you.
Well, Dan, Josh, if you're watching this, play Sega Saturn. As well, yeah, if you want a nice looking logo designed like this, you can find me on X at Play Sushi UK. Um, and please pay if I do you a logo. Yeah, I just
By
want
the
to give
way,
a
thank God we squared him up for this, but because could you imagine at this point if we hadn't he said that?
Nah, at the end of the day, honestly, guys, I originally did it, it was as a favor for free. Yeah, I never expected anything. At the end of the day, it got some people coming to me asking for a logo. Oh, can you do me a logo like the Sega guys one? And so it got me some job opportunities. So that's the main takeaway, and I'm forever thankful for you guys giving me the opportunity to do this logo for you. But and I love it. It's my proud. It's the logo I'm most proud of, waffling on there. But in terms of other shout outs, just want to give a shout out to Too Old for Gaming, at Too Old for Gaming on X. I'm currently working on the third issue of RPM, which is his unofficial retro PlayStation magazine. And we've got our next project as well in terms of his next book project. We are working on a PSP book. That's going to be coming to Kickstarter later in the year. So yeah, there's a lot of things on the horizon, and really enjoying working with Sandeep, Too Old for Gaming, on these projects. So yeah, that's it really. And a shout out to the Sega guys who I'm recording this video with. But
yeah. Superb, mate. Thank you so much for coming on and just once again for having a superb chat with us. It definitely won't be the last time. Viewers, listeners, hope you've enjoyed this one. Share your thoughts in the Discord chat, whether it's the Radio Sega one or the Sega Guys one, or whether it's in the YouTube comments below. Hope you've been enjoying this one. Share your thoughts about enjoying a Sega Saturn for the first time. If this is your first time visiting the channel, please give us a like or a subscribe. And if you really want to be extra mega, you know, why not think about becoming a member, which you can do for a lot of awesome perks from just 99p. And you can even get a shout out in the credits if you are. So, James, who have we got to thank this week for our members?
Certainly, premium members: Craig Williamson, I Am Mikowski, Stiff Peaks, G-Man. We have Sega Saturn Lad. We have Andy Mackey, and of course, our brothers in arms at Sega Saturn, Shiro. Thank you very much to all our premium members and all our members and subscribers for your support. You know, as Dan says, perks do start from 99p, but if a monthly membership isn't your thing, no problem at all. We appreciate your support in liking, sharing, and subscribing. So thank you very much to everybody for all your support.
Absolutely, 100% echo that. Even just making it to the end of this video is support enough. Thank you so much. Jason, it's been a pleasure. And until next time, we will see you all on the Sega side.
You must play Sega Saturn. Sega!